Hello, everyone. My name is Cody Hall. I'm the host of The Faces, Entrepreneurs Are People, and the CEO and founder of Telehelping, a virtual staffing company, the sponsor of this here podcast. Today, I have with me Paul Mackiewicz, the CEO and founder of Honorable Marketing. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing good, but you always butcher my name. I meant
What
to
do
correct
I
you
do?
earlier. Yeah, Mackiewicz.
Whoa, Mackiewicz. Oh, man, but Mackenzie would be so much easier for me. Mackiewicz. Actually, Mackiewicz is much cooler. You could be a 90s hip hop rapper.
You could go, the Polish pronunciation is Mackiewicz.
Mackiewicz. I like that. But Mackiewicz is like, yo, 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 my name's Mackiewicz. And so so that would be equally funny. Okay, Mackiewicz. I'm gonna go with the English pronunciation. We'll work on Poland later. All right. And so Paul, no, brother, excited to have you here. We've known each other for a while, been in the same network. So I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, man, I'm super pumped to do this. I love just always having the opportunity to have awesome conversations right in the middle of my day. Just jams me up for the afternoon. So let's go.
Let's do it. Well, man, hey, in the name of outsourcing, which is what we do at Telehelping, tell us who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Paul Mackiewicz. I am the CEO and founder of Honorable Marketing, and we provide online presence management services for legal and medical professionals, really helping them understand their true value and display it online in a way that helps them grow their practice. So I'm a military veteran. I was a computer operator for field artillery. So I was the smart guy telling gun bunnies what to blow up, pull string, go boom. And I've kind of been in computers my entire life. I was designing websites when I was, a teenager. So to still be doing this now, but doing it with really awesome professionals that are positively impacting the world, I feel like that's God's calling on my life. Serve those that are serving others.
Yeah, it's so funny. I didn't know the field artillery people had intelligence folks out there. Here the entire time, I thought they were just lobbing things. No, joke. As a forward observer and things like that, I understand the value of having someone in the rear that knows math. So it's perfect.
Well, and as the guy that was sitting in the air-conditioned box, 10 clicks back from you while you were out there sweating, telling me what to blow up, I appreciate you.
Hey, man, we all, I think the funniest thing I ever heard when I was in the Marine Corps is that there were meteorologists, right? And I met this guy. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I'm a meteorologist. And I thought to myself, I'm like, what in the hell does the Marine Corps care about weather? They got me standing in the rain half the time. And so, and he's like, no, artillery, we think about weather patterns and everything, how it impacts the round trajectory. I was like, this entire time, I thought we were just spraying and praying. Look at you. So I'm glad to have someone in the rear. And it's good to have another fellow veteran on here, another crown eater. And so it's nice to be in great company today. Also, happy belated birthday, happy belated Veterans Day as well.
Yeah, you as well, man. You as well. It's a weird day for me every year because I have mixed feelings on my military experience, but I still go and get my free donut at Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme and soak it up. And my wife is absolutely fantastic and tries to make it like a special day for me every year. So Veterans Day it's grown on me.
Good. And I'm similar in the sense that I unfortunately am surrounded by so many men who have had amazing military careers, and so it kind of drowns out my small bang of an existence on that side of the fence. That's the part of being a part of some of the best groups with the recon guys and then these MARSOC gents. When you're a part of them, everyone's like, oh man, these dudes are badass, right? But when you're a part of them and they're all much more badass than you are, you kind of feel like you got on the wrong tour bus occasionally, and you're looking around, you're like, all right, we're just going to try to blend in here, make sure no one knows that I'm in the wrong group. I felt like that way. I just did a Marine Corps ball. Shout out to Recon Sniper Foundation and Invictus International host a charity ball that we help sponsor every year in Las Vegas. Bunch of soft guys go there. This year they had an amazing guest speaker, a Medal of Honor recipient, and he's telling me this story, right? And I have a buddy of mine who's a board member and the general counsel here at Telehelping. He's not have a lot of exposure to the military, and so he's sitting there, right? The general mentality of military, like if you're surprised, act cool. First rule is be cool, right? Don't be too like, oh my goodness. And so I'm sitting here and like every time this guy says something dramatic, he's like, oh my God. Like you hear it and like the speak. It says we're a sponsor. We're close to the front. I know Matt and everybody well. And we're sitting there and he's like sitting there. He's like, this is just amazed. But I was equally amazed. I'm like listening to this dude's citation story and I'm like, wow. All
Yeah.
right. Like you're alive. And you can tell that it's an experience that he's still recovering from 15 years later. But he's sitting there and he's just amazed. I'm like, my man, blend in. Right. Everyone knows that you're not one of us. So, but it was an amazing story. And so, yeah, I'm with you. You know, I happen to be surrounded by amazing people, but I'm a much better veteran than I ever was. I was a bad Marine. Everyone should know out there, there's a level of bad. There's this thing called the Marine Corps quote unquote, sorry for the derogatory, it's the shit bags. Like I may have found myself in that insubordinate area for a while. Not that I wasn't fit or great at my job, but I'm an individual. I'm an entrepreneur, right?
No.
I like to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah, same way.
I played it years.
I definitely got in trouble a good bit. But what's funny is that I was always going to the Soldier of the Month boards and everything like that because I have good memory. I can recite whatever is told me, and I found most of my time in the military it was spent kind of covering for some shitty officers ahead of me and NCOs and officers. And I got in trouble a decent bit, mostly because I like efficiency, and a lot of things in the military are not efficient. And but I also think that that's one thing that makes you a great business owner, though, too, is even though I've always wanted awesome mentors in my life and just struggled to find them, but there's a lot of things that you can look at somebody and be like, okay, cool, well, that's what I don't want to be, or that's how I don't want to act. And I think I actually learned that in the military a bit, because I was like, it's not that hard. Showing up on time, busting your ass, it's really like not that hard. It's like you got one way to go. You just go for it and you go hard. And the people that would always try to cut corners, or they'd be late, or they're not shaved, their BDUs look like shit. Like, you just look at me like, preparation really will set you up for so much in life. Even if you kind of like suck at the thing, if you're at least more prepared than your average person in it, you're still your range of outcomes becomes much narrowed, much more narrow, because you're at least moving in the right direction, even if you're going a little bit slower. And it's also kind of fun thinking about military experience and entrepreneurship, and that when you get out and while you're in it and you're going through it, you're not really taking these life lessons on, right? It isn't until years later and you're reflecting on it and you're like, oh, maybe that's why I still wake up at 5:30 in the morning. Maybe that's why I find the most efficient ways to do things. Maybe that's why I'm so driven in these different areas. And at that time, you're just like, man, this sucks. Like, I hate it, but it forms you, it molds you, it makes you into the human that you are that day. So, I'm also third generation military. So my grandfather, my father. So there's a lot of family pride in it. I'm also one of 6 kids, and I was the only kid that in my generation that enlisted. So I'm kind of the only one that carried it on. I don't know that I got 2 boys, so I don't know that I want them in the military or not yet. We'll see kind of how things shape up and change in military service. But I definitely think that they should be service oriented in some way, which I think is kind of what I learned from my grandfather and my dad is, serving those who are serving others is huge, but also serving those that can't serve themselves. I would have my kids do AmeriCorps or even the Peace Corps or something, to just go travel, be able to see how other people live and learn, even mission trips. I mean, if it went through the Christian route, just to get out there, see how the world is, realize, man, does it imbibe you with some gratuity when you see how horrible, most of the world has it versus what we do. So I can't really complain that much, can't gripe that much. I was eating lots of meals, people's tax dollars paid for me to work out. But when it comes to comes to actually like taking pride in a lot of it, I have to compartmentalize it. If I think about the overall mission, what we were doing, I feel like I should have had a NASCAR driver, like a big Lockheed Martin Raytheon,
Yeah,
right
no.
now. Yeah, I feel like that should have been on my BDUs instead of that second ACR patch. But when I compartmentalize that and kind of just know that I didn't have any control over, mission parameters and what we were there to do, but I was there. I enlisted for the right reasons. I enlisted after 9/11 to go get the bad guys. I enlisted because of pride in country, pride in service, wanting to provide and protect for family back home. Then all that
Yeah.
it comes back to the surface. So it's just a matter of balancing those.
No, that's interesting that you say that too, because, one, every person in there's been for every war the United States has fought in, there has been a man in my bloodline who's fought in that war. So
Wow.
we've been fighting for capitalism and oil for a long time. And I say that with the utmost amount of sarcasm, but also, I want to point out to those who aren't military and who are listening, I joined for America. I bleed red, white, and blue, right? And so I'm American, although I've lived a lot of time in Mexico, love it there as well. The point is I understand that there is a conflict of interest, right? We have a certain degree of freedom that we want. Being a superpower provides us those abilities to have opinions and freedoms, and those are great. But I also understand that there's conflicts and all that. There is such thing as the industrial military triangle. That is real, right? And we do have interest in that, right? Or else why would we keep building billion-dollar Abram tanks and B-3 bombers or however else they're coming out with nowadays? But I still do it. And I talk to my brother in the same respect, like, because now me and all my brothers have children, right? And we've all served. And my older brother's mentality is like, we've bled enough. Like our generation, we've paid forward, right? And his mentality is, and I want to say that I would hope that my kids, because we're in an interesting political climate, right? We're just ending, recently a 20-year war, right? And ideally, we get a break, right? And that break would be just long enough for my kid to potentially become old enough to go off and be an enlisted person, right? And so I think about what that could mean for our political decisions that we make nowadays, because I have a lot of friends who did die. I know people who unfortunately had to pay that sacrifice forward, and seeing their families and being their parents and seeing their moms. Like, I'd hate that to be me. I'd hate it to be my brother. I hate to be my niece and my nephew or whoever wants to go serve. So I would hope that my kid chooses a better path. I didn't have a choice, right? So like for me, like it was either the Marine Corps or some other form of incarceration, right? And so like I was heading down that path. And so I grew up without parents. I needed that guidance, right? I grew up by my grandmother, although she's as tough as woodpecker lips, right? The Marine Corps smacked me around. And, that's why, we're standing here today in 2024 in November, and we talk about the election that just took place, right? And a lot of people want to know why. I was explaining this to one of my very good friends, and in spite of our political differences, couldn't be more polarized, right? Couldn't be more different, right? We're still friends, right? We still love each other, right? Which is rare nowadays. We sit here, and he asks, "Why are you voting the way you're voting?" Well, I vote with my taxes and my guns. But in today's political climate, I'm voting to keep my son out of a future war, right? And I think that's where we look at the past 4 years and what's taken place in the world and how it's gotten conflicted. It's a scary world for people with our backgrounds and with children now. 2 sons, 1 son. I have 2 nephews, and I have cousins with boys. It's a scary world for us. I mean, we know people who could end up in these fights.
Yeah, and I have a romanticism around fighting for the right causes. I love, like, one of my favorite historical figures is Spartacus. I've read a dozen Spartacus biographies and modern adaptations of it, and I love the show on Stars. Is probably my favorite show I've ever watched in my life. It's like one of the few series I think I've watched like 2 or 3 times all the way through. So I definitely have like a romanticism around like fighting for the right reasons, ending. His big thing is ending slavery and giving people a voice, and the ability to just live life the way they want to. And the one thing that I just love about America so much is like that's our core fundamental, right? Like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And I see that this election was basically a referendum of we have to get back to our core principles.
Yeah.
Like we have veered too far off to
Back
where
to the basics.
back to the basics. Like if you're gonna go to war to win a war. If you're gonna go to war, it needs to be for the right reasons. The financial motives and profit-based decisions that DC and lobbyists and all that make. We as a people had to send a message that we're not cool with that anymore. Like that's
Yeah.
it's
And
just it. And what sucks is it's both sides, right? Like
yeah.
whichever side that you voted for, there is a history of corruption and making horrible decisions for financial benefit over humanity and over people's actually well-being and the will of the people. But one side I saw as purely anti-establishment, not only in the leader of the party, but also in the team that surrounded him. Right? If we're pushing health at the at the loss of big pharma and big agri companies making massive profits, like that's a win in my book. If we are pushing efficiency in the name of things actually like working right where the will of the people. I mean, one of the stats that just blows my mind is whether a position is supported by 80+% of the population or supported by 10 or less percent of the population. There's zero difference in the chances that it will actually become a law. It's about 30% across the board for both of them, meaning the will of the people truly doesn't matter. And it is the will of corporations. Whereas when you look at lobbyists and donors and where they feel on a policy spectrum, theirs is directly linear alignment as far as like if 80% of corporate interests want a certain policy passes, it passes. If 30% don't want it, it doesn't. Right? Like so that's a big problem. And as a country, we just had to come together and be like, enough is a fucking enough here. Like,
correct.
That's what this election was. And what's the other thing that's great too is like it's not just here. We're seeing like El Salvador with Bukele, same thing.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in Argentina with Milei, same thing.
Correct.
Like people are saying like, yeah, just you are a public servant. Like that's what we call them here, right? You're a public servant.
And
I'm
I'll
not
give
being
you it's interesting too that we look at the same thing that happens like Mexico, for example, right? A buddy of mine, Matt, who CEO of Invictus, one of the founders there, and I'm like, I just can't believe they would elect someone so socialist. He's like, what do you expect them to do when 80% of the nation's in poverty? And I was like, correct, also correct, right? And so, you and I have this big macro world and that we exist in, that we have our opinions on. And I don't know about you, but what I love so much about being an entrepreneur and the head of my family is that I am that CEO, right? I am that president. And so when you look at what's going on in the world and how it impacts you, how does that impact, your approach at your business, right? How does that impact your approach to your family? Because that's you own all those stock, right? That's, that's Paul.
Yeah. I take a ton of pride and honestly comfort in a weird way of being in control of it, whether it succeeds or it fails. I'm in control. I just had a buddy recently tell me, he had this rather large expense hit him. It was like 10K. And so I was sitting here talking to my wife about it. I'm like, if a situation like that arose in our family, I know exactly where my head would go. It'd be like, okay, cool. I just need to sign 5 clients. Like, it's not, it's not this like devastating, well, I'm only getting paid this every month working for somebody and being like, okay, well, I guess we'll pay it off over this, and this. In my head, I go, I need 10K. Okay, I'm going to go get 10K. Like, it's, I think it's a different mentality around it when you understand that your entire world, what you're responsible for, your family, your legacy. I think about legacy a lot. I don't have these delusions that my kid's gonna like take over my company one day. Like my kid's gonna do
Yeah.
whatever the hell my kid wants to do, but my company is gonna give him that opportunity. Like he's gonna know that his dad ran a company called Honorable Marketing that provided, gave him the ability to be homeschooled and to go vacation here and like take that trip. Like he's gonna know about the company. I don't need him to want to run it or to want to come work with me or anything along those lines. I'm going to use it to teach him a ton of things, but I want him to also feel, okay, cool. I had the example from my father of what it means to take control of your life. And I want to do the same. I feel like so many people just don't understand that opportunity is there.
Yeah.
Luckily, the entrepreneurship and gig economy is kind of coming back, and I absolutely love it. Like you have an Etsy store,
Right.
fucking great. Like that's better than going and working nights at Walmart. Like no matter, even if you're making a little bit less, the amount of time that you're saving doing what it is that you're passionate about, like that is that's the world that we're quickly, I think, coming into in some serious ways. Especially with AI. I mean, I deal so much with AI.
Yeah.
The amount of change that our country and the globe is going to go through over the next 5 years it can't even be comprehended right now. I'm at that point right now where I'm not doing 5-year forecasts. What my company's doing, I'm not really doing that all that much forecasting, even like 2-3 years out anymore, because I'm under the impression right now that it's going to be a very adapt and overcome society for the next few years. Corporations aren't. I think they're going to be losing a lot of power with, the new administration that's coming in, but also so they're getting downward pressure. But I think there's also going to be a massive amount of upward pressure as well from people just saying like, no, why are we doing this? Like my least favorite saying ever is that's how we've always done it. I'm like, well, it is the stupidest thing to me ever.
Really?
It comes down to like institutions, even like religion. I grew up Catholic, so I grew up in the Catholic Church, and maybe that's where this comes from, because it's always just like, no, that's dogma, that's tradition, that's what we do, it's how we do it. Tradition, dogma certainly have their place. Like it's great to be reverent of it and to observe it when it makes sense. But if it's coming at the detriment of your life, the detriment of your ability to, free your mind, be open-minded, to see the world in a different way. And that's politically too. I mean, if you are stuck in a dogma, you can't grow as a human. And I truly pride myself on personal growth, societal growth. I mean, I've done ayahuasca, I've done psychedelic retreats, I've done a peyote retreat. I've sat in the white sands of New Mexico on mushrooms for about 5 hours, just looking up at the stars. Like those experiences, and I see it like all too much with people that are, disappointed with the election, or they feel like their rights are being trampled on, not even taking a moment to like step back and have the self-awareness that we live in the safest time in human history. At no point in American history have we ever taken rights away. Like we do nothing but you get more rights and you get more, except for when the government is feeling some control slip through their fingers. But it's never based on the color of your skin or your sex or your sexual orientation. Like it's because there's an inherent power accumulation greed that humanity has, and government is just like your perfect example of it. And when it's allowed to go unfettered, when you don't have unchecked, thank you, when you don't have journalism checking it, when you don't have people checking it, that's when the evil of humanity comes out. Governments, religion. I mean, you look at the Spanish Inquisition that happened to the Catholic Church. Was like, if you don't adhere to this dogma, you're literally beheaded, right? Like it's constantly.
It's one thing that I really like, that I always tell my wife, and she shocks by it every time I remind her, that don't ever forget, after World War II, when the United States bombed Japan, the United States could have effectively taken over the world. Effectively. There was nothing that could have stood in the path of the atomic bomb. you don't agree with us? At that point in time, Russia didn't have effective nuclear weapons, and no one had nuclear. We could have done whatever we wanted. But instead, and I'm quoting Elon Musk here, he's the one who said this once. Instead, we rebuilt. We invested heavily into Europe. We invested heavily into Japan and all the places that had the Philippines, the Galapagos Islands, everywhere, right? All these places that have been war torn, right? We went in and rebuilt, and that's what, I remind people all the time, like, people want to accuse the United States of an abuse of power over the course of its history, but they forget that in the break of being able to be in control of everything, they went back to, hey, let's have this one world, right? This world where we exist. And you're right, you said earlier, we live in the safest time. There was a point, back in the 40s, right? If we're going to reference World War II, where it was like 3,500 some odd people were dying every day for 5 years, right? For 5 years, every day. And that's on top of everything else that's happening in the world, right? All the other normal death that we have. Right? We talked about 45. Cars weren't safe then. Planes were crashing more frequent. Trains were dangerous. So not just your everyday death, right? You can put that up there. We're talking about an extra 35,000 every day. And that number may not be accurate. I'm not Joe Rogan. I don't have fact checkers with me, right? You're just going to have to go off good old Cody's. Yeah, look it up, Jamie. And so maybe we'll get there one day. I'll hire one of my own virtual assistants. I'm like, hey, Kenneth, look that up real quick. Make sure I'm correct. And so, that's one of the biggest things. And, and take it back even further in your dialogue there was, talking about like your son, right? Your son not wanting to follow in your footsteps. That is indicative of the world. It's indicative of the United States and the fact that, we have those who are raised in the 90s and the 2000s, the 80s, like these different generations, like they could have been, right? That's the way we've always done it, right? But they didn't. They dramatically did it different than the generation before them. And if we look at the Z's and the X's nowadays, what are they doing? They are very similar to the 70s in the way that they approach things, right? Their mindset towards it, and the people want to talk however they want. They believe how the election went the way it went. Don't ever forget the fact that Trump was leading by at large with under 30 population. Right. We're talking about the kids, right? Those kids. But we're talking about the kids here. Like they're the ones who were a huge differentiator with the voting, and they were voting at large. And so we can say whatever we want, however we want, but the world of tomorrow is going to do it at once. And I think that you're sage and thinking about what's going to happen in 5 years, right? And then I work in the outsourcing business, right? So I'm painfully aware of tasks that can be done by computers that will be done by AI in the next 5 years. And I look at my people in our processes, and we don't say, well, we are going to people first process. No, we're an infused process. All of our folks are Mexico based, and whether you're from Mexico, United States, we write like Mexicans or Americans, right? And they use AI that says, hey, listen, proofread this from the perspective of English as a second language. Like, for someone who set me up an algorithm inside my AI for telehelping and content creation. At Honorable Marketing, shout out to you guys. We have a similar one for English as a second language translations. Like, hey, I wrote this email, write it and correct it as if I were a native English speaker, right? Because my wife has been speaking English since, she started maybe like 2011. Right. So, when she immigrated here, and to this day, she still says things that are funny. Right. So, I'm like, I didn't realize, I think so, like, man, she speaks really great English. Years later, I'm like, yeah, I was fooled. Now I know your ESL. But, and then, my last point from what you said there was your point about your son taking over your business. Right. That would be cool. It would be cool, but it would be tone deaf of us to think that they're just like us, right? They look like us. My kid's my copy, right? But he's not Cody. I want him to be like me so much, right? But I also know that I also want him to be better than me in a lot of ways, different than me in a lot of ways. And those differences may cause him not to want to be the CEO of a company. And it's not for everybody, right? My little brother, he's just now starting his plumbing company, but I've been trying to get him for 10 years to start a company. And I remember I was at a fundraiser for the military, biker rally, right? All these guys and motorcycles were hanging out. And I was like, hey, you need to start your own plumbing company. Stop working for the man. Screw the man. We work for the man in the Marine Corps. Forget that guy. right? And then my buddy Matt, he's like, nah, I like it. And then my buddy Matt's like, hey, listen, dude, CEO, it's not for everybody. Entrepreneur, like you could want it for them all day. It's not for everybody. And that's true. This is the best, worst job I've ever had. Right.
Mhm.
I got to make decisions every day, whether I want to, like, it's a nice, cozy, rainy day here. Like I'm happy to be hanging out with you, Paul. However, I'd much rather be sitting on the couch watching Toy Story with my boy. Right.
Mhm.
And so, and I could if I wanted to. Right. I could clear my calendar right now and do that all day. But the guy who I work for, which is me, knows that got a $10,000 bill, right? It's 5 clients, right? I think of that exact same way. And so, I think one thing that I'd like to get from you as we get closer to the end of our time here is, how do you do that? You're a man who just had a kid. Also, congratulations again. And you have 2 boys. You have a life that you're a guy who obviously enjoys the finer things outside of being on calls and doing marketing things, right? How do you strike that mental balance, that mental fight?
Yeah, I think a lot of you. So I've never had a very good support system. One, I'm so sorry. I got something on my computer going off here.
You're fine. You're
All
fine.
right. Sorry about that. I was getting
Entrepreneurs are people too, right?
yeah.
And things pop
My
up.
my do not disturb must have popped on because I was just sitting here and had to silence that. I first off, I love being a dad. This is my favorite job I've ever had. Next favorite would be the 2 years I spent as a golf pro. I see it a little bit similar. You got to give it a lot of attention, right? You got to. I would just hang out with my kids all day if I could. But with that, I take a ton of pride, even in teaching my son this. He's not even 3 yet, but he knows his job. Like I'm like, what's your job? He's like, I protect Maverick. Maverick's the infant. He's the 1 month old. So I'm like, what's your job? I protect Maverick. Great. What's Daddy's job? Provide and protect. Like he's already. I'm ingraining these things because I think that's it's incredibly important to have an identity that is outside of yourself.
Yeah.
I think so many people and it's something I struggle with running this company because unfortunately I am the company right now. Like I can't sell my company because my company is honorable marketing. There's an honorable guy whose face is all over the social and the website and the this and the that. At some point I need to, work my way out of it if I would ever be interested in selling it. But also like it's a pride point. Like I got this amazing opportunity recently to talk to my dad, and my dad's a really great guy. He's a little bit misunderstood by some of my family because he's a Roman Catholic deacon. He's he's I could say right wing, but because he's kind of been on that side most of his life. But he came to me and he just told me how incredibly proud he was of me. It's like it choked me up.
Yeah.
But I'm the only entrepreneur in the family. I'm the only military veteran in the family. So I kind of like broke a lot of molds. And it was super cool to have talking to my dad, holding one kid, holding another kid, and just like no matter how many times I have to like get into the office at like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning to prep for this thing, or I'm stuck working late and my wife's at home cooking dinner, texting me where are you? My wife's not the most understanding person either for an entrepreneur. She's the best. She's an awesome human. She's a rock star. But when it comes to like, where are you at like 6:05? I'm like, babe, I got one job right now and I gotta provide. So I'm like, just gotta give me this night to let me, and she understands, but we all kind of lose the lose the tree, seeing the forest, right? And so she kind of just wants me in it, and I'm focused on kind of like a bigger picture of, hey, 5 more phone calls today. That's 1 more meeting that I'll set for tomorrow. That's another, I close 30% of the meetings that I take, that gives me a 33% chance to make $2,000 more this month, right? Like that, what does that $2,000 mean? Well, that $2,000 is going to mean, a vacation for my family. Like that's how things, how I have to like prioritize things in my head. And it's tough sometimes because just like, yeah, man, I would love truly to just hang out with my family all day. My favorite thing is my kid gets home from daycare and he's like, let's go hit golf balls. So we go in the backyard. He's 2.5. He's already got like a pretty good swing going on. Like I would love in 4 or 5 years to know that I put in the work today. That is the reason that I'm a member at a golf course and my kid doesn't go to school on Fridays because we go and play golf every Friday. Like that. Yeah. That's one of my dreams that I have. Just be a member at a cool course and be able to take my kids, the 2 boys out to hit golf balls every Friday. And because I love them and I love my wife so much and I love the opportunities that this country affords us, it makes that balance a little bit more palatable. Like some days it definitely sucks, right? Like some days I completely eat shit and I have to tell a client, I'm so sorry that this didn't get done. But I look at it like cool little kick in the mouth. All that tells me is like, watch for that right hook next time. Right. So like it reinforms the systems that I have. Like where was the ball dropped? In most cases, and you could probably speak to this too, when you're an entrepreneur and the ball gets dropped, it's my fault. Right? Like I didn't reply to something, I didn't delegate something, I didn't train my team enough on something, I didn't put the right system or parameters in place for a thing to happen. It's always fault of my own. And with any company that you work with or work for, I feel like it's very easy to blame. It's very easy to say like, oh, marketing's not getting me enough leads. That's why I don't have sales. Or, this client had the wrong expectations set, and this is why we didn't, meet our production goals. And it's always blame. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's really a masterclass in eating shit and seeing your own shortcomings, acknowledging them, be better. And that's some of the stuff that I really like to, take all these lessons that I'm going through, all the things, the self-awareness and the reflection time to, find those things that I could do better. And it all comes right back to like my kids and my wife. Right. So when I'm sitting with my kid and, right now he's going through good choices, bad choices. So like he hits me and I'm like, was that a good choice or a bad choice? He's like, bad choice. I'm like, we don't do bad choices, right? He's kind of coming to this realization. And even like when he gets upset, I sit down and I go, do your breathing. And he goes, I can do it. Like if he's like, he wakes up at night and he's scared, like, do your breathing. And he says, I can do it. And then he can go back to bed. Like, I don't think, maybe I just think too highly of myself, but I don't think enough people that aren't entrepreneurs look at even parenting that way, look at the world that way. I think people love to identify as victims constantly. And I refuse to. Like, things are my fault. Like every single time, like if my kid bit somebody at school, this was like a year ago, but it's kind of funny because this woman's like trying to coach me up on like, this is how you get them to not bite. I'm like, I get it. Like, I was taking it on. She obviously wasn't being, malicious or insulting me or any way, like insulting parenting or anything like that. I understand her job and her function, but we get into the car and of course, 1.5-year-old, but I tell him like, we do not bite. Get the aggressive voice for a moment, because this was an opportunity for him to learn. It was just like me failing with a client, just like us making bad choices in anything that we do in life. It's always an opportunity to get better and to grow. And I really wish more people in the world, especially in the US, looked at things that way.
And I'll take and I'll reiterate what you said there as well. At one point, when someone on my team always fails or an objective fails, we don't reach a milestone, I always ask myself, and I tell them this, I'm like, I ask myself, when you fail, what did I do to not make you successful? Mm-hmm. Like, was I not clear with our objectives? Did I not impress upon you the importance? Did I convey a sense of urgency that wasn't there, or didn't convey the sense of urgency? I'm that way. Well, I suffer from it's my fault mentality. And like, where did the initial the commander's intent go wrong, right? And so Paul, at the end of the day, I think that you have a great perspective on things, and then I know that you always have to and will always have to walk that line between dad, entrepreneur, and husband. So I appreciate you for jumping on here today and taking the time. I like an opportunity to say, hey, how do people get in contact with Honorable Marketing? What do you guys work with specifically? That because you and I are in the same industries. I work with lawyers, I work with healthcare, and I work with accountants. So we're very similar in that. And I have those people on this podcast. So how would they get in contact with you for your services?
Yeah, so we're going through some very awesome and exciting things over here at Honorable Marketing. I've always worked with a ton of attorneys, and I truly love working with attorneys. Most of them, we'll say, are really great human beings that are trying to positively impact their community in a protector role, which is something I respect deeply. They're protecting people's rights and their legal situations, just ensuring that they're represented properly. With that, as much as I love doing that, I have found that I truly love the functional medicine space even more, because I think that there's just so much corruption and kind of like this David versus Goliath situation in that industry that there just isn't in the legal side. I mean, you get these big national brands, your Morgan and Morgans and Celino and Barnes and things like that. And I like working with, Joe's law firm, right? Like I like finding the little guys, finding what's cool and unique and that special value that they present their community and help them pull it out, because a lot of these businesses don't, they take 8 years of law school or medical school and they'd never take a marketing class, right? They've never actually sat down and said like, what's cool about me? What's special about me? What's, unique? So I work with a lot of attorneys, but my main focus right now is on the healthcare side, in functional medicine, alternative medicine, osteopathic doctors, chiropractors, some acupuncturists, a lot of these people that, I went through the VA healthcare system and they misdiagnosed my Lyme disease for 2 years. It wasn't until I found a functional medicine doctor that said, hey, like, I think that you might have Lyme. Like, let's this. Got me better in like a couple months, and I just have such great respect for these people, because history has really stacked the deck against them in a lot of ways. Like I just did a social media video about understanding the Flexner report and like why functional medicine is held back versus mainstream healthcare. But anyway, all of this to say, the best way to get in touch with me is honorable.marketing if you're an attorney. And we also have MAHA, MAHA.marketing for the functional alternative medicine space. Both of them are run by my company, Honorable Marketing, but we really wanted to cater the experience when people get to MAHA, not only as, hey, we're here, we provide the service, but also as a resource of just saying, we understand that you're in a shitty fight. We understand that the odds are stacked against you. We want to be here to give you hope and optimism and encouragement that you've made a career choice that is not just, financially potentially lucrative, but you're truly positively impacting the world. And so that's a lot of where our hands are kind of at right now is building up the functional medicine and alternative medicine community. And we do have our own podcast coming out where we'll be interviewing different functional medicine professionals to hear their story, to hear, why they do what they do, and some positive results that they've gotten for clients and things like that. So maha.marketing for the functional medicine side, honorable.marketing for the legal side, and then our socials and everything like that, everything is Honorable Marketing. Instagram, honorable_marketing. Facebook, just look up Honorable Marketing. I think that's what it is. And then you can always find me on TikTok, Twitter, my own Instagram, LinkedIn. Everything is Honorable Entrepreneur. So
Awesome. I like the spread, and I like the division between those two. I think it's important to have those images that you're trying to cater to and have those different verticals there. So, Paul Mackiewicz.
Nailed it.
Oh, man. From Honorable Marketing is our guest today. I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you for all those watching, for those coming on the podcast in the future. This is The Faces. Entrepreneurs Are People. I'm your host, Cody Hall, CEO of Telehelping, a virtual staffing company. Thank you so much for joining. If you have comments, want to see someone else on here, have someone that would be great on Paul's podcast, right? I have someone, don't forget, I want to connect you with someone who's an OD. Please contact us through those channels. Thank you so much for watching. That's it. Bye, everybody.
This video was brought to you by our official sponsor, Telehelping. Need support for your business? Telehelping connects you with top-tier remote staff to help you streamline operations and fuel growth. Go to telehelping.com and get started today.